This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning, folks. Welcome in. It is, I was going to say Harvard Handicappers. It's Friday. I'm out of it. Jonathan Von Tobel here on Money Moves. We've got a lot to get to over the course of the next 2 hours as we head into what is the best weekend of the NFL postseason, the divisional round. We got a lot of good games, a lot of injury updates to get to as well, and plenty of smart folks. Let's not waste any more time and start every program here like we always do.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
Because I'm by myself, we need a lot of smart people to carry me through over the next 2 hours, and we do just that. Our usual roundup of guests. Mike Palm will be in studio coming up in about 15 minutes, get his thoughts on what was a big game last night in the National Hockey League and what we will see, of course, going forward in the National Football League. I'm referring to the Vegas Golden Knights' big performance last night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Will Hill will give us his best bets for the weekend in the National Football League, and it is a big week in the top 25 in college basketball. We've talked a little bit about that throughout the week. Well, we are finally here. Greg Peterson will join us to get his thoughts on what we're going to see tomorrow. And Zach Cohen, senior editor and host of Hardwood Handicappers. It's been a big week in the association, even bigger today, tomorrow, and moving forward. Zach will have best bets and a look back at what we saw last night. Speaking of last night in the association, well, we got to talk about that at some point. He's a whiner. What a call yesterday. Luka Doncic whining, moaning, complaining, and you get the call last night from the Charlotte Hornets broadcast when he was, of course, complaining to a referee. The Lakers have lost 4 out of their last 5, and we had another team that is on the skids getting smoked last night. We'll tell you who it is and why it matters in the big picture of the NBA. But we start today with, of course, the topic of the day. The divisional round approaches. It is a football Friday, and we have a lot of injury updates for our games going down in the National Football League starting on Saturday, and it begins on Saturday. Or at least our news. Of course, the day will get started with a matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But the news of the weekend so far is the status of one Sam Darnold. We get news yesterday that Darnold was added to the injury report. It is an oblique injury for the Seattle Seahawks quarterback. Seahawks initially opened up as a 7-point favorite with a total of 45.5. And right now, we've seen some market adjustments on the news that is the case. Because remember, initially we had a 7.5 that was floating out there in favor of the Seattle Seahawks. Let's hear from Darnold, who was on the podium yesterday, talked about the status of the injury, and told us, don't worry, I'm going to be out there.
Dave, how you feeling?
Feel good. Yeah, obviously, just in routes on air, just kind of felt a little something in my oblique. Just didn't want to push it. Wasn't the day to push it, so that was it. So just came inside, got some rehab, and feel like I'll be ready to go for Saturday.
That was just today that happened?
Yeah.
You ever had anything, oblique issues or anything?
No, never had oblique issues, but it's fun. We'll attack it the next couple days and be ready to go for Saturday.
Is this on throwing side?
It's just on my left side. It is what it is. But yeah, again, like I said, felt it on a throw, but we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, the problem here is not so much because we've had this conversation all the time about injuries. Do we assume that because he's going to be out there, he's telling us he's going to be out there, that we just view Sam Darnold as he is at full strength? The problem, because Sam Darnold has not been playing well for well over a month now, and now he comes into this game leading a Seattle Seahawks offense, which has been very disjointed over the last, I'd say, month and a half, and his own play has been up or down. It's been a tale of 2 seasons for Darnold, and now we have to deal with this injury. Let's read the book, though, on what Darnold has been up to this point. Weeks 1 through 9 for Sam Darnold as he heads into this game. Remember, he started the year hot going into that first matchup with the Los Angeles Rams, and in fact, we called it, and I think many did, when I say we, us here on the program, on Money Moves, a potential MVP eliminator. That's how well Sam Darnold had been playing going into that game. But through the first 9 weeks of the NFL season, Darnold, a PFF passing grade of 92.6. He led the league in EPA and CPOA, EPA and completion percentage over expected composite. Touchdown to interception ratio, 3.2 touchdowns for every interception he was throwing. A turnover-worthy play rate of just 2%. He had committed 5 turnover-worthy plays over the course of the first 9 weeks of the NFL season. His average depth of target was 10.2 yards downfield, and he was averaging 9.6 yards per pass attempt, and he had completed 70.4% of his passes. But since Week 10, Darnold has been a below-average quarterback, to say the very least. PFF passing grade goes from 92.6 to 58.9. over the course of week 10 to week 18. EPA and a completion percentage expected, well, guess what? You go down to about 26th in the National Football League over that stretch. Touchdown to interception ratio 1-to-1. 1 touchdown, 1 interception every time. Turnover-worthy play rate skyrocketed to 4.5%. And some of the most alarming, I think, statistics in terms of the fall from grace for Darnold, 7.5 yards per attempt on an average depth of target of 7.4 yards downfield. So he wasn't even pressing the ball downfield, and yet his turnover-worthy play rate spiked and his completion percentage dropped. This has been a big issue for the Seattle Seahawks. And now you have to go into this matchup against the San Francisco 49ers with a quarterback who has already regressed and is now dealing with an oblique injury on top of that. You got to wonder what this is going to look like for Jackson Smith-Njigba's production, for the Seattle Seahawks offensive production. And we can talk about the floor being raised because you're taking on a San Francisco defense, which has been among the worst in the NFL, largely due to injury. But this is a really big deal, I think, for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think it makes some sense that the market decided to take off that hook here at the very least. Darnold's going to be out there, but he's already not been playing well. And now you have a key injury here, 7 with a total of 44.5. We also got some news from Kyle Shanahan yesterday. The hope here for many 49ers fans, including the one that usually sits in the chair that I'm in, was that Fred Warner would potentially be back, but that was nixed. He will not be activated off of injured reserve for the weekend from Adam Schefter. Not be activated off injured reserve, according to Kyle Shanahan. The injury report so far for the San Francisco 49ers. Outside of that, Jacob Cowing, Luke Gifford at linebacker. The big name to watch is going to be Ricky Pearsall at wide receiver and Dee Winters at linebacker. And for the Seattle Seahawks, really the only name that is going to be the focus, it is going to be the status of one Sam Darnold. We'll have a little bit more on how you're going to play this going forward, but worth updating here for Darnold. And really, it is the theme, injuries for the two games that we're going to see on Saturday. Because for Buffalo, the question becomes who in the world is going to play wide receiver for this team? Let's hear from Josh Allen because this is massive. This team's been dealing with injuries left and right. 3 total healthy receivers after another torn ACL. Allen sounds like he's got faith in his guys, though.
Yeah, obviously not an ideal situation, but I still trust that room completely. Whoever we bring up needs to step up, and, we have full confidence that they will. This week is going to be very important throughout the practices that we have of making sure that we're getting on the same page with timing and just understanding where guys can go, try to utilize their strengths to the best of our abilities. But I got no doubt that whoever's going to be up in those spots is going to do their job, step up, and then help us win or help us make plays.
I'm going to be really curious because I think the blind belief, and I have espoused this, and I think it's why I really do think that if you got that teased up in the favor of the Denver Broncos, you were pretty solid earlier in the week, is that this Broncos defense should match up relatively well with the Buffalo team that is ailing at this point. You still have James Cook, the ability to potentially run the ball. But this has been pointed out, and I think it's very fair, and I have not really thought about this angle for the hopes and dreams of the Buffalo Bills, if you will, heading into this matchup with the Denver Broncos. If you look at Denver since coming out of the bye week, the Broncos defensively really have, if you dig even just a little bit deeper, have not been the same team defensively as we all kind of believe them to be. Remember, they had to turn away the Washington Commanders on a 2-point conversion attempt in overtime. You had the Green Bay game in which you won 34-26, but Green Bay shut down in the red zone, still moving the ball throughout that game against this Denver defense. In totality for Denver, giving up 362 total yards in that game, just under 6 yards per play. We don't really need to rehash what Jacksonville did to this team out in Denver, as we remember a 34-20 victory, Jacksonville all over them. This is, I think, very interesting to watch now because the final 2 weeks of the regular season, you can say, well, Denver bounced back. And they did. They also took on Chris Oladokun, who had nothing going for the Kansas City Chiefs, as we know. And, of course, they took on Trey Lance in the Los Angeles Chargers, who are resting guys as they got ready for the postseason. Is it something or is it nothing now for Denver as you look at a defense that, since the bye week, has looked a lot more mortal? I think that's going to be a fascinating watch here. Josh Allen, at this point, has everything on his shoulders. He and James Cook, the top two guys that are really healthy. You would expect that you're going to get a lot here in terms of a bunch of tight ends, maybe some 3 tight end looks, maybe some extra offensive linemen to run the ball here to keep Josh Allen out of it and get James Cook going. But either way, this is becoming a fascinating game if the Denver Broncos are the team that kind of took some step backs post bye on defense that I think that maybe I'm not giving the Buffalo Bills enough credit here with the best with the best player left in the playoffs at this point, at Josh Allen, that they'd be pretty live. I don't think that the Broncos are going to do anything in terms of blowing them out by any stretch, because the other side of this, of course, is what in the world are you going to get from Bo Nix, who, as we know, has been fine this year, but has been well below average in a lot of key metrics. But I do think that the more I have thought about this, the more that I should give Buffalo credit and a chance, obviously, to get this. And I think we are still, though, where we're at and where we should be. 1.5 in favor of the Denver Broncos, total 46. And I think a Saturday teaser, I think this is very similar to what we talked about with Chicago and Green Bay last week, where teasing up either side, I think you feel pretty good, and I think it's the same thing here. A Saturday teaser would be very popular. You can get through multiple key numbers, and I think this is going to be something that bookmakers will probably want squashed with one of these teams going down. But teasing up Buffalo to that 7.5-point mark, it's probably going to feel pretty good here, and teasing down Seattle, even with the injury to Sam Darnold, because this defense has been absolutely incredible for Seattle, and I think they should be pretty alive here to get this win. Cover 7, that's another question. But at the very least, you should be live to get this done. We do have some other injury news. We get to the impacts of these throughout the show. But worth noting that Nico Collins, absent from practice again today. He remains in concussion protocol. And speaking of concussion protocol, Christian Gonzalez, corner for the New England Patriots, questionable. But he has been practicing in a limited fashion. We'll see if he can get out there for New England. Remember, a big thank you to Spot Odds for all the injury updates, from professional sports bettors like Billy Walters to world-class bookmakers like the ones here at Circa. Everyone who bets big or books big uses Spot Odds. Use the tool the pro use. Subscribe today at sportsodds.com. Use code VSIN for a special discount. I can read. I can get through it. All right, when we come back, Mike Palm. He's going to join us in studio, get his thoughts on what we saw last night on the ice here in Vegas and what we will have this weekend in the NFL. So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSIN Pro. VSIN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSIN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
We are inching closer to the NFL postseason resuming on Saturday. Looking forward to that, and a lot going on in the world of sports, including a little baseball hot tub if we have time. No better person to break it all down with and confab about with than one Mike Palm, who is with us here. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, John. Nice to see you here always on Fridays.
Always.
Soldiering away.
That's right. You miss time? No, sir. I am always here. But somebody says that we make fun of her too much about it, so I will say nothing else except that I am here and ready to go.
There's a nice studio in Nashville, like halfway to Miami, that she could have just stopped at.
I mean, I'm not familiar really with the geography of the East Coast, but I felt it was close as well. But that's just me. All right, I wanted to go really quickly. We have a lot to get to, but I actually wanted to start in hockey because last night, so I am not a big hockey guy, but so it was lost on me the impact of Toronto and the Golden Knights last night. But we had Nick Alberga come in yesterday. We had Jonathan Davis come in yesterday. And it felt like it was a little bit more. And watching that game, that was pretty good as the Knights pull off a 6-5 win in overtime.
Well, Nick wants to get out of Toronto in the winter, so this was a nice spot. He's been talking to me about this for 4 months, putting him up at Circa for the game. Now, 9 nights later, they'll be in Toronto.
Yes.
And that atmosphere will be, I think, just as charged for Marner's return. It was a terrific game. It looked like early that in Adin Hill's first start back that the Maple Leafs were just going to crush them and roll, and the Knights just kind of hung in there. You know, and I was putting together an in-game parlay late last night. I was like, it was, you know, one of these favorites to get to even money, and I was thinking about Toronto was up 5-3, and I'm like, I could throw them in. I'm glad I didn't because it would have blown the ticket. So a miraculous comeback and win in overtime, and I know, right? There were a lot of people that are Knights fans that have season tickets but don't go to every game. They were all at that game last night.
Yeah. That was pretty fun. I liked it. I mean, you got me hooked as somebody who doesn't really watch a ton of regular season hockey, so I'll look forward to Toronto for sure.
I'll give you a couple of angles here in NHL. You can bet the game total over on the Rangers in Ottawa just blindly.
Okay.
Bet over 6.5 on these games. Neither have any goaltending, especially if they're going to put Quick out there, who's now lost 9 in a row, just turned 40. They don't have any answers. Shesterkin's still hurt. And Ottawa, we know the situation there, but I think he can do that. Here's another angle as we head to the Olympic break. Look at teams that have no or one Olympian against teams that have multiple Olympians. Okay. I favor the team that doesn't have the Olympian, and that these guys are giving 100%. And I'm not saying the others aren't. But these guys that are going to the Olympics do not want to get hurt right now.
Sure.
This is the worst time in the world. So, take a look at some of the other players that once they got named to Olympic team, what their stats have done. They've really cratered because they're coasting now to get to, they've been chosen to be an Olympian, and that's what's important right now.
Do you think there's going to be what's the gap between the Olympics ending and the season starting up again? Would there be some sort of a letdown for these guys coming out as well?
No, it's going to be this whole thing of the guys that didn't play. It's just like, remember when they took the 10-day break? Teams would have their 10-day break, and it wasn't all at the same time. They had overlapping 10-day. The first game back for that team that was off 10 days, these guys don't have their legs.
Yeah.
Now I would say disadvantage and advantage to the guys that wouldn't play to the Olympics. They're still in more shape. I always play against a team. When one team has got their first game back already under them and the other team hasn't, I favor the team that's got the recency.
I did add, by the way, I have an NHL future that I've added to the portfolio. I did bet the Red Wings to miss the playoffs.
That's an interesting. I asked Jonathan Davis on Bet on Chicago yesterday because he keeps citing all the stats that belie them being in second place. Do you still have a strong enough take that you could bet them to miss the playoffs? And he said, not quite. But that was in my head, right?
Yeah, because they were plus 230. They went down to plus 175. They get the Kings tonight, so I'll be interested in that. Mike Palm with us here. All right, let's look ahead to the weekend. I think it's the best round of the playoffs. I love the divisional round. All these games look great. We get the news yesterday, Sam Darnold, oblique injury. He's going to play, but as I was just telling our audience, he hasn't been playing well for over a month. Since week 10, he has been one of the lesser quarterbacks in the NFL. What do you guys make of this, or what do you make of this? It's 7 right now. You guys are juiced to the favorite side at minus 115 with a total of 45.
We just came down to 7. We were the one hanging out there at 7.5. And came down to 7 off the Darnold news. This DL defense is so good. Purdy didn't play well in Philadelphia.
Nope.
Purdy made plenty of mistakes to still win that game. And no Kittle. I did a teaser here. I did a 7-point teaser down to a pick because I wanted the 7 and Houston up to 10. But I didn't want to lay 7. I didn't want to lay 7 here. So that's the way I played this game. And I think you can make the argument for under 43.5 here as well. I think you can make a lot of arguments for unders this weekend, which scares me. You can't play every game under, but I think there's an argument to be made for the under in this game.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. So my teaser was before Denver flipped. I have a Denver-Seattle teaser.
Okay, so you had Denver up.
Yep, to 7.5. Yeah. And speaking of that one, they are now 1.5-point favorites. I would expect that sticks by the time we get there. I mean, Josh, you have these injuries. Poyer's out. I should have mentioned that to our audience.
Yeah.
Poyer's not going to play. We obviously know Shavers has a torn ACL. He's got 3 healthy receivers, one of which they hate. Keon Coleman, he played fewer snaps than Shavers did on the torn ACL last weekend.
I will say that Denver, that defense has been susceptible to tight ends and backs that catch the ball, which is all Buffalo can do because they have no wide receivers, right? And it's been this way for a few years. So I don't know that the Denver defense matches up that great with Josh Allen in this spot. We're now at 1.5 Denver here. I played Buffalo straight up on the money line.
So the other part, the sneaky part about it is, as we were just talking about too, coming out of the bye, you almost lost to Marcus Mariota. You got rolled on by the Jags, and the Packers actually had almost 400 total yards against you, too. So the last 2 weeks, you played Chris Oladokun and you played Trey Lance. I'm really curious to see what this Denver defense actually looks like against the best player left in the postseason.
And if you're going to compare quarterbacks, they're not going against a better quarterback in Bo Nix than they faced in Trevor Lawrence last week.
Absolutely. All right, what do we make of, we're going to go to Sunday here. You mentioned you teased up Houston. What do you make of, first off, this number? You guys are 3 really juiced to the favorite side at minus 120. Total's 40.5. Sounds like there's going to be some snow here, but not too much wind. Do you expect to get to 3.5?
Maybe. But then you'll get the Houston money, and you go back. 3's a tougher number to get off of than 7, actually, because not that many games land 7 with the 2 point.
Right.
As they used to, at least. I think the Patriots' offensive line is going to have a hard time protecting Drake May. I just do. I just think these edge rushers are going to create havoc. May did not play well last week. As much as we want to talk about C.J. Stroud, I, as a backer of Houston, actually would rather him start Davis Mills. I say that, I'm not joking, because I think there's much less variance in the game you're going to get from Davis Mills. He's going to be a guy that will manage the game and not lose it. I mean, Pittsburgh doesn't score if Stroud can handle snaps. He was way off on a lot of those passes. But they'll go with Stroud. But I think there'll be a quick hook if Stroud plays poorly early here.
The other part is he's not, and it's not like he was Lamar Jackson, but he at least he would scramble at times when the pocket would open up. He doesn't do it anymore.
Not anymore. He's anchored
to
the pocket.
Yeah, whatever it is, but he will not. He'll either throw a pick or he'll take a sack here. All right, what do we make of Rams-Bears? This one's pretty popular. It's you guys are at 4 again, total of 48.5.
Yeah, I bet under 49.
Okay.
They're terrible defenses. But it's cold, damn it. It's hard to catch the frozen ball. I'm not talking about throwing it. It's hard to catch it, and you can make the arguments. All right, so McVay's Rams have played 4 times outdoors under 32. This will be well under 32. They're 2-2, but average 15 points a game. And Stafford's thrown more picks against the Bears than anybody in his career. Yes, he's played more games against the Bears, Packers second most, but he's in the bottom quadrant of passer rating of opponents against the Bears as well. So, I mean, it's not because of the defenses. I say the Bears are not a bend but don't break defense. They're a break and take.
That's a good one, yeah.
They're which makes this game say, I still don't believe what I saw Saturday night. No. And the atmosphere here was almost better than a Super Bowl. I mean, the second half, it was bedlam in this joint. The Packers don't turn the ball over and go 3 for 3 on 4th down. The Bears turn it over twice and go 2 for 6. So the Packers were +6 turnover difference. Yeah. That's what they were +6, up 21-3, up 21-9, and lost this game.
My favorite about the series, in the series, they played 3 games so far this year. The Bears have had no snaps with the lead, and they are 2-1 in the series.
That's true. And they've led for a minute and 42 out of the 180 minutes. They're 2-1. LaFleur was coaching this game. The drive where they missed a field goal, I thought he was playing like the preseason game in Minneapolis. We'll call a timeout. A delay. Let's burn enough. As if going up by 6 ended the game.
Yep.
I mean, he was using his timeouts like that's over. If Crosby makes a field goal, you're still only up 6.
Yep. I will say, I have this ticket from the Blackjack Invitation on the Bears. I'm starting to, I don't know if it's because I have this, starting to believe. I mean, come on, this team. Because 2 things can be true. I keep making this comp. They have been lucky to win some of these games. That stretch going into the Philly game on Black Friday, they were pulling wins out of their A like crazy.
The Giants game.
Right. But that Black Friday, Mike, they beat Philly. They went in there.
They rushed for 270 yards on Philadelphia.
So why can't this be true, too, where you're getting lucky as hell, but then you come in here and you just beat the Rams at home?
Well, they never give up. That's one thing, though. They're calm. I mean, they believe in themselves, right? 7 victories when trailing at the 2-minute warning.
Yep. All right, we have 45 seconds. Anything about baseball you like? Just want to say.
I can't believe the money that these teams are paying. Kyle Tucker, $60 million a year. I mean, this is getting to be ludicrous. Like Congress is going to have to step in on the Dodgers here. And then the other thing is, to me, it's a red flag that Toronto, who's spending money, didn't re-sign Bichette. I think the Mets panicked and way overpaid for Bichette, too. I thought both contracts are ludicrous.
I mean, what are they? What do you guys have? Do you know off the top of your head what you guys have the Dodgers at to win the World Series?
I think we were at 270 down to 250. They closed 220 last year, which is the shortest price favorite since the Yankees in the early aughts.
That's ridiculous. Mike, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
John.
it. As always. All right, we'll be back. Will Hill will join us next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Big thanks to Mike Palm, who was just with us. If you missed out on any part of that, you can check out our podcast, Money Moves, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Pods. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Would very much appreciate it. And while you're there, I'm sure you already do, but make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, follow the Should Have Bet More podcast. And the host of said podcast, William Hill, is with us here. You can follow him on Twitter at @NotTheWillHill, who joins us, VSiN contributor as well, to look ahead to the divisional round in the National Football League. Will, good to talk to you, buddy. Let's dive right in. I wanted to start with Seattle and San Francisco because we got the news yesterday that Sam Darnold has this oblique injury. He is officially questionable, but told the media that he will play. He has not played well at all over the last 8 weeks or so. So what do we make of what this injury means for both his performance, the Seahawks, and the game itself?
Hard to know, isn't it? And it's a little bit of a similar thing with Stafford, where maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. We're not going to really know until the game starts. But it's the quarterback. It's an injury. It's not something where I think if you're handicapping the game and you just completely dismiss it, I don't think that's the correct thing to do. I wouldn't make my whole handicap about it, but it's at the very least I would think something to monitor. I like the under anyway. Maybe this makes Seattle lean into the running game even more. And you mentioned it, the last 6-8 weeks for Seattle. They beat your Colts 18-16, Rivers' first game. They beat Carolina, but they averaged 4.4 yards per play. They had the 13-3 game against San Francisco. So their offense is not really fine. They did have the one Ram game where they won a shootout, which got wonky late, and they scored when they needed to. But the offense isn't in great form. And if you look at the other side of the ball, the defense is outstanding. No Kittle for San Francisco. Mike McDonald, remember, he was the Ravens defensive coordinator. That Christmas night massacre for those of us that had Brock Purdy MVP tickets a couple years ago on Christmas night. So he's always done a pretty good job of limiting Purdy. To me, this is an underplay. A little familiarity, I think, helps out too. So I like the under here. 45 and a half, shop around, but I do like the under.
Do you mess with any side tease or anything like that? I tease Seattle down. It feels like the best way to handle the side.
I would agree. I'd be surprised if Seattle lost the game, but I wouldn't be shocked. I do think Seattle is a good teaser lake.
Yeah. All right, Josh Allen, what does he have in store? This is going to be wild. He's got 3 healthy receivers. As I keep joking, one of them they hate, Keon Coleman, played fewer snaps than Tyrell Shavers, who is playing on a torn ACL. What do we make of what Josh Allen has in store for him against Denver? Do you like anything in the game player prop-wise, and what do you expect to happen on the field?
I like Allen over 8.5 rush attempts. I think he's going to call his number plenty. You look at last week, 11 rush attempts. Remember, QB kneels count, sneaks count. And without the healthy receivers, I just think him tucking his head and running for 6-7 yards at a time is often the best play. So I like that over. And I do think, it's in what should be a close game. I would think Allen over Knicks is not a bad way to go. I lean under. I lean Bills. I think if you're teasing up to 7.5, Bills is not a bad way to go either. If you're teasing the Bills and the Seahawks, probably a good teaser. But Allen over rush attempts is my favorite play.
All right. Let's go to Houston and New England because right now I am conflicted on what to do here. Told Mitch on our pod of the Futures, I blindly trust Houston's defense. I think they're going to be able to carry this offense a very long way. But this offense stinks, man, and C.J. Stroud was not good last weekend against Pittsburgh. So what do we do with them on the road against New England? We also have a little bit of snow in the forecast, it would seem. Don't know if I trust the Patriots offense either. So how do you handle this one?
Yeah, and by the way, I had Mitch on my podcast should a bit more, so I appreciate you letting me borrow Mitch and lending him to me. He was great. And I don't know if it was him or somebody else said they trust Houston's defense more than any other unit left in the playoffs. And I was thinking about that.
He stole that from
me. The Rams offense, but Stafford banged up. Yeah, that's not a bad way to approach it. I like under 7.5 in the first quarter. All coaches hate turnovers, but especially defensive coaches. And if you just look at last week, May fumbled twice, lost one of them through an interception. Stroud fumbled 5 times through an interception. I think both these coaches come into this game saying, you know what, low-scoring game. We were sloppy with the ball last week. Let's take care of the ball. I think that's the priority early on, and that usually lends itself to close to the vest, conservative, just, hey, let's not be afraid to punt. Let's just not turn it over. And anytime the mentality is let's not turn it over, I think that's good for an under. So under 7.5 for the first quarter because I think that's the best way to attack that. And probably lean under for the full game too. Texans and the under is usually a pretty good combination. I would lean towards the Texans getting the points. I think you can find like a 3.5 minus 115 out there in a close, low-scoring game. I don't mind getting the points. We really hadn't seen May get tested. All the talk about his schedule and who he's playing, the Jets and all that. The Chargers had their opportunities last week. The defense did a good job. So I lean towards Houston taking the points, lean towards the under, but that under 7.5 first quarter is my favorite play.
All right, last one on the board for Sunday here for Will Hill. Let's go to Los Angeles Rams at the Chicago Bears. Current number where I'm sitting right now has LA as a 4-point favorite with a total of 48.5. Do I have some hope with this Bears ticket? Can I get them on to the NFC Championship game?
I think you do, and it's amazing that ticket is still alive after it was 21-3 Green Bay, kicking a field goal and getting the ball to start the third quarter. You're thinking, you know what, Saturday night I'm going to find something else to watch. This game is headed for 31-3 before you can blink, and somehow the Bears pull it out. Just incredible. What a meltdown by the Packers. I like them here, and I don't like doing that. I hate being against the team one week like I was last week and then jumping on them. But the weather, the fact that it's going to be 0-degree wind chill, you have a quarterback with a shaky finger, a warm weather team, All of that favors the Bears, even though the Bears, not an ideal cold weather team because they're not great against the run, obviously, not even good against the run. They're pretty poor. That being said, the Rams are not good on defense. Look at the Rams. I mean, we talked about this with the Seattle offense. The Rams' recent form on defense, every time you look up, they're giving up 30 points. They gave up 38 to Seattle that Thursday night game, middle of December. Gave up 27 in a loss to the Falcons. The Lions got them for 34. They gave up 30 a couple times, 30 plus a couple times to the Panthers. I don't like their secondary. Their special teams are always concerned. Throw in the fact that it's a warm outdoor team, indoor team playing outdoors in shaky weather with a maybe banged up quarterback. I could only look to the Bears here. I think the Bears are very live to continue the magic, pixie dust, whatever you want to call it, and keep this thing going.
Hope you're right. Got some time to decide how this is going to go on Sunday. Of course, it's the last game. Kind of want it to be the first so I can get this over with, but we will find out what we can do here. Will Hill with us at Not The Will Hill up on X. All right, let's talk a little national championship before we get you out of here. If I were to remove everything you had in terms of your investments in Miami, maybe you can remove that from your brain. When you see this number at 8.5, what do you think you should do here?
Take the points, take Miami on the money line. I'm surprised. I'm shocked it's this high. I think it'll be similar to Ohio State, Miami, where remember on New Year's Eve, money poured in on Miami. I just think this is inflated. At no point in the season would this line have been 8.5. If they played in October, Miami would be favored. I get you got to make an adjustment. You got to upgrade Indiana, all that stuff. They've looked dominant. Keep in mind that Oregon game. Oregon had both coordinators leaving for other jobs. Were they fully focused? They just played Ohio State. Both teams did in the last month or so. Indiana, first of all, was a 3.5-point dog. They won the game by 3. Miami beat them by 10. Ohio State left a ton of points on the board. They got stopped 4th and goal from the 1. They missed a short field goal. Miami pretty much dominated that game start to finish. That's one common opponent. I just can't get to 8.5 here. I think Miami with the offensive line, defensive line, the run the ball. I think this is a close game. I would not be surprised at all if Miami won. I just think this is really, really inflated.
Yeah, I tend to. If you were to tell me they just pick it, I probably would say plus 8.5. But I keep making the comparison to that UConn team from a couple of years ago in the NCAA tournament. Like, I don't know, man. Indiana just seems to be that special right now.
It's possible. I mean, it's certainly possible. If Indiana went out and won the game by 14, 17 points at this point, Beck had one of his turnover games. Would I bat? And I have a hard time getting to 8.5 here. So. Yep. Should be fun. I was talking about this, I think, with Gil the other day. I mean, I love it from a content standpoint, a fan standpoint. Anything we can do to shorten the gap between the end of football and to the start of March Madness is great. It is a little weird, though. January 19th or 20th here, we got a college football title game. It is a pretty – they've dragged out the season a lot here with this new format.
Yes, they have. We need to change it. All right, before we get you out of here, last 2 minutes, should I tie my money up on what seems to be a lock at plus 250 for the Los Angeles Dodgers to win the World Series?
Probably not. I mean, it's not a bad bet, but tying up your money. Here's the thing. I know they're just the rich get richer and all that. 2 years ago, the Padres had them down 2-1. Padres were up 2-1 with game 4 at home. Cease versus an opener could have easily eliminated. And last year, it took a miracle, down 3-2. We saw what happened in game 7. It's baseball. It's a small sample. And it's just, man, tying up your money for that long for plus 250. I wouldn't say it's a bad bet. It's not enough for me, but I get it.
This has to change at some point. This has to, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's never going to, and I get the argument. It's one of those things where two things can be true at once, where the other teams should be spending more money and that the Dodgers do have resources that are beyond everybody else's comprehension.
Yankees, I think, made more money, more revenue, $750 million in revenue for the Yankees, and like $705 for the Dodgers, and the Yankees are sitting there, signing Paul DeJong and minor league pitchers. It's ridiculous. It really is.
Well, you can continue the trend as my team does and continues to get guys who were good 3 years ago, but that is neither here nor there. Yeah. All right, Will, good to talk to you, buddy. Thank you very much. Good luck this weekend.
All right, see you. Thanks for having me.
Got it. Will Hill again. Follow him up on X at Not The Will Hill, and check out the Shoulda Bet More podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, and in January, I guess it makes some sense to have a little bit of baseball talk at this point right now, but this is absolutely fascinating to see where the Dodgers are going to be priced as we continue to move along, getting Kyle Tucker, absolutely ridiculous, and the Mets getting Bo Bichette, 3 years, $126 million. Also, if you're under a rock, missed the other one, not the biggest news in the world, but still pretty impactful. Real Muto will stick around with the Phillies on a $45 million deal. All right, we'll take our break. We come back to the association where the Lakers continue to lose, and this team has now been on one of the worst ATS trends that are alive right now. We'll tell you who it is when we come back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Coming up in about 30 minutes, we're going to continue on with our guest list. Got a lot of great folks who are going to join us throughout this program. We'll have Zach Cohen and Greg Peterson be with us as we look ahead to some basketball in college and in pro. Not in that order, by the way. Greg Hoops Peterson will be with us at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Zach Cohen 15 minutes after that. Cohen, of course, doing a great job covering the association, which is where we will begin here. We got a lot going on in the NBA after last night. If we could, please, do we have it updated? Because we got to get to the big result of yesterday. We finally get another one on the board here. The Charlotte Hornets win-o-meter gets to tick up one more. How about that? Charlotte with a win, and a strong one at that, last night over the Los Angeles Lakers. 135-117. Hornets get to their 15th victory. We are halfway to Kelly Bidlin's 30. We don't need as many, but the Hornets continue to play some dang good basketball at this point right now. Game goes over the total as well. We'll talk more about the results in terms of the ATS and over the total when we get back to best bets and recap from last night. But the story here, of course, the Los Angeles Lakers, not so much because they are the brand, but because they are flailing a little bit here. Right now, we are looking at a Lakers team that, if you look at their recent ATS results, they have failed to cover 4 out of the last 5. That coincides with the straight-up results as well. They have become one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. And again, last night, I mean, we talked about this, called it whiny. Luka Doncic constantly complaining about officiating and not getting calls, not getting back on defense properly. So many issues for this Lakers team. And they're just kind of limited with the way that they are constructed. Older bodies that aren't as athletic. Here's J.J. Redick last night with a pretty interesting breakdown of what the struggles have been for the Lakers on defense, specifically against the Hornets.
You know, we can be a little bit cautious guarding the ball. And, you know, if we do get beat off the dribble, then we're in rotation. I thought our low man was awful all night. And so we're scared of the drive, and then so we're just too far off we're too far off the body. But there was some of that tonight, and some of them was that's a good. I mean, it's a good offensive team. They had 150 against Utah and blew out OKC at OKC. I think everybody, you know, our coaching staff and the guys in the locker room, we all knew that, you know, that they got our full respect and attention pregame, and I thought we fought. I mean, just another team that has a hot shooting night.
It's more than just that, though. I mean, he is referring to the fact that the Lakers, and there's some variance here when you're talking about your three-point defense. Once that ball leaves your hand, you really can't do anything as a defense. You can give up open threes, which the Lakers at times are prone to do, but they are 29th in opponent three-point shooting. Opponent shooting 38% from the Lakers from beyond the arc. That is a pretty big deal. Lakers opponents are also taking a lot of threes. They're 20th in that regard in terms of just three-point frequency. But again, 24th in non-garbage time defensive rating, giving up 118.6 points per 100 possessions. And we've talked about this a lot for this team. When you look at their profile overall, their record in clutch games, their actual net rating, the way they play defensively, this is a fall from grace that is warranted for the Los Angeles Lakers and something you expected at some point. Their expected wins over the course of 82, if you look at their actual net rating, 39.9. So this should be a team that slips in the standings. And their upcoming schedule, it's going to be pretty challenging. They have to go out to Portland coming up on Saturday. They come back home to face Toronto. We'll see what that looks like before they go out on a little bit of a road trip that will ultimately end at Brooklyn. But this is the long one here for them. Denver, the Clippers, Dallas, Chicago, Cleveland, Washington, and New York, amongst those some pretty challenging opponents for the Los Angeles Lakers. So this slide is legitimate at this point right now for LA. The question is, will they be able to dig themselves out of it? Will they start to improve? And what will they try to do at the trade deadline? There was a report today, as the ever-continuing saga around Jonathan Kuminga continues, that the Lakers are sniffing potentially around him. Would not really fix any of the issues that Lakers have. An on-ball defender, especially at the guard spot, some wing depth, and some 3-and-D or lack of 3-and-D talent. Having said that, this is going to be pretty fascinating to watch for the Los Angeles Lakers. They've been playing above their skis for so long, and now it's finally starting to expire. And, as we noted the other day, finally losing their first game in clutch time to the Milwaukee Bucks, 105-101. This is going to be a team that I think you're going to see take a very strong fall down the standings in the Western Conference. Currently, right now, 24-15, in control of the 5th seed, just ahead of the Houston Rockets, who last night we saw take on the Oklahoma City Thunder in a pretty ugly affair for Houston. Ultimately, the result, 111-91. OKC gets it done against the Houston Rockets. Rockets are really sliding at this point right now. 0-7 ATS in their last 7 games. Over the last 18 contests, the Rockets 4-14 against the spread, with losses in 4 out of 5 if you include last night against Houston. You could point to a lot, I think, for Houston over the course of this slide that has really hurt them at this point right now. But I think one of the things that does stick out about the Rockets, and this was going to be, I think, a concern for this team as we have seen them throughout the year, but their offense has been abysmal over the course of this stretch that they are on right now. The defense has been great, but they can't score. They can't score in the half court, which has been one of their biggest weaknesses. Half court offensive rating of under 85 in each of these games going back to January 3rd. This has been something that I think a lot of people pointed to as maybe a potential Achilles heel for this group. And after last night, this team has now slipped to 16th in half-court offensive rating at 97.4. It's been worse over the course of the last 7 games, and I think this will continue for Houston as we talk about the issues that this team has. Very good offensive rebounding team. In fact, they lead the league in terms of points per 100 missed shot attempts on putbacks and plays generated per 100 missed shot attempts on putbacks. But everything else in terms of points for actual play on these putbacks, they're 29th. So this team really has some issues. A lot of it has to do with just, hey, all they have is Kevin Durant, and that's about it. And I think ultimately it gets back to the bigger picture in the Western Conference, something we talked about at the beginning of the week. Why now, I think, is the time to just start to invest in Denver. I think that as this continues to shake out in the West, you are going to look at really one other team, maybe we'll say 1.5, that could upend the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that, to me, is the Denver Nuggets, currently the 3 seed right now, right behind the San Antonio Spurs, who have the same record, but the tiebreaker, Minnesota, at the 4 seed. And given the way this is looking right now with these teams, their weaknesses, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a different order, but these are our top 4 teams. They're going to have home court in that first round in the NBA postseason. All right, we have a full slate of games today in the association. Let's hit on a couple of some of the line moves. We could focus on some of the sides that are maybe worth looking at here. Chicago and Brooklyn. Chicago opens up as a 1-point favorite at multiple spots with a total of 228.5, but we have since flipped here. Brooklyn now a 2-point favorite. That total right around 226, so a little bit of a back and forth on where this thing opened. Injury report for both teams. Something worth noting here, as we know, Josh Giddey has been out, but Kevin Huerter probable to play here. Really, this is going to come down to how the Brooklyn Nets can, of course, continue to defend at a very high level. This has been their thing. I don't think that there's that much separating these two, so to flip this back to Brooklyn being favored at home makes a lot of sense. I was expecting this to be more like 2.5, and we're getting in that neck of the woods for the Brooklyn Nets at this point right now. New Orleans and Indiana. Indiana has been hot. This has been something that has turned around here for the Pacers. I mean, hot by their own standards. They didn't lose last time out against Toronto, 115-101. That snapped a 4-game cover streak for though, and a 3-game winning streak for Indiana. So they've been playing much better. The offense has turned things around here as we have seen it. Right now, if you look at this for New Orleans as well, a team that at one point was the hottest ATS team in the association, especially around the time that Borrego had taken over, but not so much the case here. They have failed to cover 7 out of their last 9 games, are coming off of a cover and a victory over the aforementioned Brooklyn Nets, 116-113 at home. But given the number here, we're at the 4. I think the market makes a little bit more sense than where we're at right now. Don't know if I'd rush to lay 4. Total's 241.5. This thing's been bet up quite a bit from 235. Cleveland and Philadelphia, injury news here to note for both teams. Darius Garland out here for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dean Wade as well for the Philadelphia 76ers. Names to watch. Nothing really. Kelly Oubre is available, and the probable tags have been thrown on Joel Embiid and Paul George. This, of course, is a little bit of a revenge spot for the Philadelphia 76ers. Last time we saw them on a basketball court, it was against this Cleveland Cavaliers team who beat them 133-107. Now coming back here for the second part of this baseball series. Can the 76ers get it done? They failed to cover 2 out of the last 3 games, but you zoom out a little bit wider than that, you see a team that's covered 6 out of the last 9. Philly has done a pretty good job so far. LA Clippers, Toronto. The reason why the line moved here, Kawhi Leonard will not play tonight against the Toronto Raptors. We saw Toronto open as about a 1.5-point underdog. Since then, they are now laying 2.5, with a total of 212.5 without Kawhi. This is where we see this team really struggle, especially on offense. He's been averaging 30 with relative ease. And the big one here tonight, Minnesota on the road against the Houston Rockets. I think Minnesota potentially could be live here. You don't want to overreact too much to the offensive issues that the Rockets have had. don't think they're going to be able to command the glass like they have usually in these matchups and generate second chance opportunities. Rudy Gobert will be out there. The pause that you hear in my voice, Anthony Edwards will not play today. He's got an injury maintenance night for him, so he won't be out there, and we don't know yet what the Houston Rockets injury report looks like at this point. They are playing on the second leg of a back-to-back. We'll find out what that is coming up in just a little bit. Folks, as the playoffs are about to start up again for the National Football League, if you're hosting people, you do need a little bit of food at home, and the best way to do it is, of course, with wings from Omaha Steaks. And right now, if you spend $129, you can score 2 pounds of fully cooked chicken wings, plus 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com/VSIN. omahasteaks.com/VSIN. Spend $129, get 2 pounds of wings, and save 50% side-wide. Go to omahasteaks.com/VSIN. Minimum purchase required. See site for details.